everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. This week I am finally returning to the possibly forgotten light up fiber optic skirt project. So this goes back to a video that was like a month ago, 2 months ago, like I want to say maybe June. I think it was late June. And I have put this project aside because if you remember from watching that video, it very much deserved the naughty pile. And then it got shunted aside while I finished all of the summer projects, like the stuff for Emerald City Comic Con or summer clothing, etc. And now here we are back to the light up dress project. So I am still planning on making this a ball gown. The skirt is relatively complete, but I did go in and after that last video I went in and I tested using a heat gun on my shrink tubing. So that's the first thing that I want to show you is how I am now doing the shrink tubing for the like fiber optic strands, because now it's working when before it was not. So let's go ahead and dive right into this light up ball gown project. If you have not watched that first video, I will link that right up here and also down below in the description so that you can get the first half of this project that I abandoned a month or two ago. So this is the heat gun that I bought. I got it on Amazon. It looks like this, and it comes with different attachments, but this is the one that I am using for this case because I like how it's like narrow at the tip. And I will link this down in the description in case you are looking for a heat gun. And I also want to say a big thank you to Luma Sonata for gifting me the fiber optic fabric. I mentioned them in the last video too, but this would obviously not have been possible at all without them. So thank you so much, Luma Sonata, for gifting that to me. I will link to their page with this fabric on it in the description as well. This is the portion up here that I've already done. If you remember back to the last video, I had just 10 connections all the way around this skirt. This portion that I've already done is 10 connections. So that's like about half. I'm hoping that I can get the other half here in another 10, because that will just mean that I will have 2 battery packs basically for the skirt, and hopefully that will work pretty okay. So I have made these much smaller sections. Like this, for example, is the new size of a section versus this was what I was doing before. It's like double. So I've made way less of these per connection, and then these go into the shrink tubing, which I also learned you can't reuse shrink tubing because I tried that on a few of these and they popped right off. But these will go into the shrink tubing. They'll get cut down a bit because if you notice, like this right now is 2 totally different lengths. Like there's a bunch that are right here, and then there's a lot that are obviously a lot longer. So everything's going to get cut down to this shorter length, or at least very close to it, so that it could all basically take up this much room of shrink tubing. It has to be within this difference. That way all of it can get into the shrink tubing evenly. And then the shrink tubing will go over this and over one of the connector pieces like so. This goes in like this, and then the lights screw into this larger side of this connector, and that is how it works. So let me show you that in action. So you have to start by warming up your heat gun. So I turn that on first, and then I go in and I take my section, which is going to be this, and I'm going to cut these all down to about there. And then we take our shrink tube. Sorry if the lights are flickering, by the way, because the heat gun actually causes the lights in the room to flicker. And we slide the tube over all of the fiber optic pieces. And then we put in the connector. Make sure the connector is all the way in, and then the fiber optic pieces should go as far up as they can to the connector, and that should be good to hold over the heat gun. So then you just hold it over, and it will shrink right up. And you kind of turn it around like you're buttering corn on the cob. so that all of the sides shrink up evenly. You want to be careful not to touch it to the metal of the heat gun. And you also want to be careful not to melt the plastic of the actual fiber optic, which can be kind of easy to do, and I feel like I have done that a couple times, but that will cause it to break. That one should be good. And then repeat ad nauseum. So I wound up using 14 connectors total, which I guess is fine because I have a lot of them, like you can see in the bag over here. And I can also always put one of these, like the last 4, with maybe one of the ones for the bodice, because the bodice packs I'm planning to also have around the waist. So now I just have to plug these in and we'll put it on the form and hopefully they all worked. So obviously I have it on now. The one thing that I'm finding, and I might have to go read instructions for this or something, but I have it controlled with the app currently, which I talked about in the last video, but there's a really cool app called Lumisonata, fittingly, and you can control all sorts of things with the skirt or with the fiber optic fabric on the app. But what I feel like is happening is that this section here is doing something different. Oh, very much so. Sorry for that flashing. Than the other side there. And I'm like pressing buttons on the app. Let me make sure that we get that flashing away. I'm pressing buttons on the app. Oh yeah, we're getting really different results. So I don't know, like they're both changing when I change to a different setting, but they are changing to things that are very different. So I'm not really sure how to get that to be the same, because obviously it'd be really weird if half of the skirt is doing one thing and half of the skirt is doing the other. I do wonder if I were to just put it on like a color. Now see, okay, so the app is controlling this side of the skirt right now because I just set it to blue and it's not actually even controlling this side at all. And I don't know, make any difference if I come over here? No. So I wonder, because I do also have a remote here, which I cannot see what color the buttons are on the remote. Ah, there we go. So like if I press blue, oh, now we're getting unification. That's too bad because there's a lot of things that you can do with the app that you can't do with the remote. But okay, yeah, when I'm pressing the different colors on here, the red light you're seeing flashing is actually the camera. When I'm pressing the different colors, it is all going. I think even the back section back here, that's where those last 4 light strands are. And actually the funny thing is these last 4 light strands are, oh, now it's not so obvious, but I put the remaining lights that were not yet being used, I balled them all up and put them in a glove. And when I first turned it on, the glove, it's a green glove, the area was bright green. I think maybe the lights were green at the time too. But yeah, so now we're getting, oh, if I do it this way, we can see it in the mirror. Now we're getting everything going the same color, but the remote can really only do like one color at a time, or it can do that, but this turns into flashing on the remote. Ooh, sorry about that. Let me get that off. I'm also noticing, see now you can see that the green glove is very green right here. I'm also noticing that like these areas where the fiber optic bits are up here at the top, obviously it's still very, very bright. So I'm not sure what to do about that and why like, so, oh, this area probably doesn't seem as bright because in some areas they're like, they slide to the side. So there may actually just not be any of those here, but yeah, probably none right here as well. But it does seem like, I think we're getting the lights. We're still light right in that section. I think this section has damaged fiber optic. This was, if you remember back to my first video on this, this was an area that wasn't getting really a lot of lights either. And like you can tell that there is a tiny bit happening through there, but it's just not as bright. And of course it's right in the front. That's pain. I also really like how it looks at the bottom. Oh, and then of course it's also next to like the brightest section. So I don't know what's going on there because, yeah, I mean, look at that difference. I don't know, but obviously I'm not redoing this skirt because I'm already wasting enough time on this project. Okay, I'll check in later when we start on the bodice. So let's talk about the bodice. I had initially thought about doing a bodice with darts in the front and the back because that would take away the issue of there being like places in the top of the bodice that, you know, curve outwards from the bottom of the bodice, such as like this right here, like the princess seam. But I also just made this summer dress that if you haven't seen last week's video, I will link that up above and down below. And that summer dress bodice pattern, it fits really great and it's super cute. And granted, I am going to be wearing this one with a corset, so I do want to try on that dress over a corset to see if it would need some alterations, you know, in anywhere besides just taking the waist in. But I really like this pattern, but it curves out like this. So the thing is, what I had initially planned to do was have all of the fiber optic pieces down here, but you can't do that if it's curving out like this because that means that anything past like, what is it, like here basically, would not be lit up. So any of this. So that means that I would have to do the battery packs at the top, which I mean, I guess it's not the worst thing in the world because they're not that big, but it still means it's somewhere, you know, up here, I'm going to have to build a pocket for battery pack. But it also seems like I would need to do that on the front too, because as you can see here, this part would be like right here. So it curves outward for the bust, which means that needs to be bigger. But then there comes the question of, okay, well, what do we do? We would need to have like some threads going off this way, and then some would be up here in the seam, and then some would be like here in the arm's eye. Whereas if I could get them all at the waist, they would just all be at the waist, which would be really easy. But it, like this piece, for example, it's not super, well, no, it is. It's an inch difference over here. So that means that that inch would not be lit up. So yeah, I don't know what to do, but I didn't really want to do a darted bodice when this bodice fits so great. So then I thought, okay, maybe I'll pull out my go-to Victorian bodice that I use for like pretty much everything Victorian, but the back is still cut with princess type seams, and now we've got 3 whole different pieces, and each one of these pieces winds up being bigger up here than it is at the waist. This one, yeah, no, this one curves out as well, and this one really curves out. So we're still stuck. So this is why I basically think I have to do a darted bodice. This is the bodice I used for the Dumbo dress and for, I think, Kirsten and maybe Samantha. But with Kirsten and Samantha, I wound up turning these darts into a fake princess seam because for some reason it fit totally differently when I made that project than it did Dumbo. So, I mean, I suppose that's an option, like making a fake princess seam, because then I'm not actually cutting anything. Though I do wonder if things like darts, if it's going to look brighter there because there's going to be fabric stacked up like behind. I also don't know how to press this at all, so that might be interesting. But yeah, maybe I should go ahead and like fit this to a corset shape because this is obviously not fitted to a corset currently. But as you can tell with this pattern, like they're really, on this piece, there's no issues, I think, for having all of my threads down here, and then they just would stop as they go up. I changed the back neckline a little bit, probably lower it a little, but they would stop like that. With this one, there could still be a slight issue because see how this curves outwards? So because of that curving outwards, anything past like right here isn't going to have access to cords. So it's a very small amount. It may wind up just being in seam allowance, hopefully, but something to think about. I don't know how this is going to work at all. Okay, so I have the mock-up on that is only straight on the grain. Though one of the interesting things is that after I assembled this, which was a couple of days ago, and before I have this on now, this morning, I stumbled across a video on YouTube by Alexandra Louise with her version of a light-up dress with the fabric from Luma Sonata. And she had a really, really interesting idea to basically make a base bodice and then just completely drape like a rectangle of the outer fabric onto that base bodice, and it turned out beautiful and like super ethereal the way that she had her sort of pleats coming together. So that is beautiful. So if this sort of thing does not work, I might just go that route because it was really truly lovely. And I will link that video on her dress down below in the description. But I do have this on. The first thing that I noticed is that somehow the front wound up really short. I don't know what's happening here, but it's really short. I realize one of the issues with it being this short, or that was causing it being almost this short, is that I took a bodice that was attached to a skirt and I just cut it out for a standalone bodice that's not attached to a skirt and therefore needs to get like tucked into said skirt. And obviously this is not long enough to get tucked in because the pattern would only have a 1/2 inch seam allowance to even meet the skirt. I think then the next issue is that the corset makes my boobs bigger, and so now it has more to get over this way, and it is, I think we're about a 1/2 inch short to my natural waist in the front, let alone long enough for it to actually tuck in to the skirt, so that will definitely have to get lengthened. I have not put any darts in whatsoever yet, so I'm not sure how I'm going to do the back darts. We're gonna see. And right now I don't have a closure in it. I am planning to do a back zipper that's my plan. But there is no closure in it currently. So once I put the darts in, I'm not sure how to get it off. Probably put the darts in, mark the darts, undo the darts, take it off is the thing. So obviously we've got a dart that wants to happen right here in the arm's eye, which is fine. And then we're gonna have darts here in the bodice. I don't know if I'm gonna do one large dart on each side, or maybe if 2 smaller darts would look better. I'm gonna have to play around with that. And then I will have to figure out how exactly to get the darts in the back. And again, to figure out if that's gonna be a single one on each side or maybe 2. So hopefully this will work, but I'm gonna go play with darts and we'll see what I come up with. Okay, so I have pinned all of my darts in, as you can see. However, I am wondering, I did 2 darts obviously on each side, but if you notice like the ones on this side, the second one out, it's like really measly. I don't know why I have 2 very nice darts over here and 1 very measly dart here, unless now my corset's not crooked. What I did was I pinned the side seams of the bodice to the side seams of the corset at the waist so that I would know where that is supposed to lay. And then I also went and like looked at where the centerfold is and pinned that to right at the center of the bust. A lot of times I do find that when I put a corset on it does twist, but today it does not seem to be twisted at all. Like this does seem like center. So yeah, I just have way smaller darts on this side than I do on this side. So I'm kind of thinking maybe I should do like a single dart maybe. The thing is that if my darts are uneven, which is normal for darts to be uneven, but if my darts are uneven on a fabric that is A, semi-sheer or pretty sheer, and B, is made of light, then where the darts are is going to be brighter because there's more thicknesses of fabric. And so if the darts are not the same, it will be very obvious. So I feel like it's almost that the darts being the same is actually more important than fit in this case. So yeah, either I have to make this dart here, which looks very nice right now, the same size as this weird little wonky dart, or just make two, like one on each side darts, and make them the same size. And same with the darts on the back. I just kind of like hastily pinned right here at the waist where these, they're not even, I can tell. I mean, I didn't measure. I literally just like reached back there, made sure that the center line was on the center of my back, and just hastily pinned. So those are not great. These darts worked out just fine. Obviously the bodice needs to be lengthened quite a bit, and the other thing I want to do is drop the neckline. So I'm going to draw on my new neckline, see where that is, and I will show you what that'll look like. So I'm hoping that this side right here can be the neckline. So it would be cut about like 3/8 of an inch up from this line. I have just folded it down for now, kind of clipping into the corners, because I don't know if this in any way will wind up curving outwards from the straight line. I'm not talking about this part so much as I am up here. Like if this, because I folded this in too a little bit, and so like if this bit is not even and it winds up curving outwards, then obviously that doesn't work, because then there's no light to support it. I suppose technically I could have about like 3/8 of an inch that could curve out in some direction, because then it would become part of the seam allowance and it wouldn't be seen. But anything more than that, and there's going to be a dark spot in there. So I'm going to wait until I have this off and make sure that it doesn't curve out before deciding that yes, this is the line that I'm going with. So I haven't yet fixed my darts. I am going to do that while I'm wearing this here. And then I just have to figure out how much do I need to extend this bodice by, both in the front and in the back, because in the back I am exactly meeting my natural waist. In the front I have not even met my natural waist. It's here. So yeah, I don't know how that happened. I mean, corsets obviously change the shape of your body, so it's entirely possible also that the corset changed where my waist is. I don't think so. Usually your waist stays the same, so I don't think that's the case. But yeah, obviously this is not going to cut it. So speaking of curving outwards though, the one place where I feel like it is okay, well actually frankly I guess it's curving inwards, not curving outwards, but I don't care about this down here below the waist. I don't care about that needing to like differ from the rest of the bodice. It is going to wind up curving like this, so technically it could light up, but I also don't need that little triangle to line up. But frankly, what I have here, or really what I will have at the natural waist, is not going to fit over my hips down here, because I have huge hip spring in this corset. This is my 1860s corset. And so by dropping this down a few inches to here, this will actually need to curve outward for those side seams on both the front and the back piece. So yeah, I'm not going to worry about that lighting up or anything. Like I'm not going to connect that to connectors, because that's just kind of a waste. But hopefully this doesn't wind up curving out away where it's already been cut out, because that would be the one part that's different. So this here in the center front, this needs to get extended about 3 inches so that I can tuck it in. It's about, what did I measure? I think it was like 1.5 inches, even just to meet, no, it's less than that. It's like 1 inch to meet where my natural waist is. Over here it's 0.75 inches to meet where like the smallest part of waist, and then it needs to go out, and it's gonna go out for a total of like, well, including that 3/4 inch, about like 2.5 inches. And then the back, again, it doesn't need much. It's probably gonna get like 1.5 inches, just so that it can be tucked in and be secure. And, you know, have all the wires away from like where the waistband is, because I still don't know what to do with the wires for everything. Like, I'm not planning on hiding them in a lining, because then I can't access them if something happens with the lights or with the heat shrink or whatever. That was something that Alexandra did in her video, was like she hid it fully in a lining, and that just seems like it will be a problem down the road, because I know, like, yes, you can change out battery packs, but that's potentially not the only thing that I would have to change out or have to fix. So I do want to have that all available, but I also don't want the bodice cords to get tangled in the skirt cords. which I'm worried will happen. And the other thing that I realized from earlier, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but you know how I had like half of the things on the skirt that have not been attached to a little light bit yet, like half of the lights? And I was thinking, oh, I'll just attach that to parts of the bodice instead. They're separate pieces. They're not attached. So I don't know what I'm doing there because they're not attached. I had originally planned to maybe do wings as well. And I suppose like maybe I could, I don't know. No, they're not. I want them all to be separate pieces. So I don't know what I'm doing with those lights because right now they're in a big old chunk in a glove in the skirt and I don't want them there either. But they need to be hidden or else those lights are a bright spot. So yeah, I did not think that through. I should have just made it 3 all the way around. I was jealous, by the way, in Alexandra's video. Her fabric came with all of the lights already connected, which is something that Luma Sonata told me after I released part 1 video, you know, a month plus ago. They told me they were going to start doing that from now on. And I really wish I was in that group that got the lights connected because wow, that would have saved me a headache. So yeah, I'm not going to make another mock-up. I am, however, going to make a lining piece. I'm going to line this with twill, I think, just to, I mean, it has structure because the fabric is stiff, but I'm going to flat line it with twill, and then it will also have the organza over the outside of the light up fabric. So I have a bunch of pieces to cut out. I mean, luckily it's a 3-piece bodice, so it's not the worst, but I have 3 times 3 to cut out and flatline all together. And I'm going to have to figure out how to flatline it together because I can't serge over the outsides. I guess I'm gonna have to flatline it with machine, and I'll probably serge the edges of the 2 fabrics that will actually fray, not the light up fabric, first, and then flatline them all on the sewing machine instead, I think, and assemble them all together. So I'm just gonna make note of how much this needs to be extended and just use that for later. And I don't know how I'm gonna fit the darts in the back, but I'll figure that part out when I get to it. Let's go ahead and cut out a bunch of pieces. So good news, it looks like this curves outwards, not out like that, so I won't have to worry about lowering this neckline like there. So the green line here is my new cut line. So this is kind of a weird and obnoxious thing. Apparently this fabric is like somehow not woven on the green because I folded this on one of the lines of the fiber optic and then I cut off the edge, but I folded it there, and then this is what happens. It doesn't line up on the edge once you fold it, and it happened both on this back piece here and then also on the front piece. And of course you can't cut off the excess because this is where all of the fiber optic threads are. So I think that basically this layer of the 3 layers is just going to be really weird looking and stick out between the twill, which will be on the back, and the organza, which will be on the front. So it's going to be funky, but hopefully it will work. So what I realized I could do with this would be to serge the bottom of the like outer organza layer and the twill layer. This one is actually a serged roll hem, and then the twill has a regular serge edge. And then with the rest of this, I've now put this all together, pinned it, and I'm going to serge around all of the other sides so that they all become one. I think before I do that, I am going to do some pins while it's still flat in like kind of the dart area. I haven't copied those darts over yet, but I need to onto the twill layer. But that way, then here, I'm going to sew this on the machine, and then all of these will be free at the bottom. The edges are now all serged, and this is stitched down by machine here. I have my pins in place on the exterior, though frankly I probably should have moved them to the other side, but I have them in place right now approximately where the darts are going to go. So I'm going to take my pattern and copy the darts onto the twill side over here and draw those in. I mean, the ones in the back are kind of going to be a guessing game because I basically had just pinched out a section and they weren't really where I wanted them to be. I just pinched out the excess. So I'm probably going to move it a little bit over because I had the pinch like here. That's not where darts should go. They should be more like here. So yeah, I really don't know how these are going to go, but I'm probably going to baste darts in on the back. I do worry about them leaving scars because I don't know what happens with the light up fabric. You know, if you have stitches and then remove them, I don't know. So hopefully it won't do anything, but we will find out. So the bodice is now fully assembled, and I did put darts in the back. Hopefully they'll be in the right place. I haven't tried it on yet. And I have also closed up the back with a separating sport zipper. I know that these look pretty clunky, but I feel like other separating zippers just don't separate as well. So this way it can open fully at the bottom right here and, you know, not get ideally stuck in things. So my next step was debating about either A, trying it on first, or B, putting the light connections in first. So like I grabbed out my lights to do that. And then I was going back and forth on, okay, should I do a full strand right here, which is kind of overkill because I don't think this needs 10, but then I could also do like almost all of a full strand, but then some of it for the sleeves. But I don't know how much I need for the sleeves, which means that I maybe shouldn't do these until I have the sleeves in and I can tell like, okay, do I need, you know, 1 or 2 of these maybe for the sleeves? Can I get away with just doing like 6 of these around? Because my other thought, of course, was using the 6 that are left over from the skirt strand somehow. But again, I don't think that's going to work because this is a separate piece than the skirt. So I think that the bodice needs its own whole separate battery pack all by itself. But I really do think that I probably ought to do the sleeves before I go in and separate this out into sections because, yeah, like if I can get away with maybe 2 lights per sleeve, I just don't know how gathered they're going to be. My thought was to use that simplicity pattern that I used for the summer dress to use this also on the sleeve. Now, obviously you can see that one edge is flat, one edge is not flat. So then that's kind of my next question of, can I reach like a light connection all the way down into the hem somehow? I really would prefer them to be up here, but then this would need to be a straight edge. So I think next week I'm going to play around with mock-ups of sleeves and figure that out if I can get away with having a straight edge top and then maybe curving the bottom edge up. That's kind of my thought, but I just don't know if that really will work in an arm's eye or not because, you know, pretty much all sleeves are shaped like this. This, however, is the sleeve base that I want to use. I do want to increase the length by about 1 inch and I want to increase the width by like a couple of inches. But yeah, that's for next week. All right, so I have the bodice on here and there are definitely some fit things that need adjustment. For one thing, these darts, the top ones in particular, wound up very pointy. So I'm gonna have to kind of fix that a little bit. And then the waist is actually too big. It's not a ton, but it's probably close to 2 inches too large at the waist. I think that some of that might be coming from my weird wonky darts in the back. They're also not going up far enough, these darts. I think they should go up maybe to like here. It's hard to tell on the monitor, but they don't go up that high. So I think I need to, oh, they go up to here. Maybe it really is that they needed to be closer to the center. I don't know, I almost feel like the location of the darts is a little bit off in the back. So I'm gonna have to try and examine that the best that I can. But yeah, you can see that it's like too large up here too. So I think I'm just gonna take in the side seams because honestly, I feel like these darts are doing pretty okay, but I'm also like, I'm not getting quite enough hip spring right here. So I think that by taking it in at the waist and up here, but allowing the hips to be free like they are, because they're as far out as they can be, then that will be good and that will take care of where it's too large. And then I'll just figure out what, if anything, I can do about those darts on the back. The other thing just to be aware of, I guess, if you're ever using this, is that this is very pokey under the arms. So I'm glad that I know this now because definitely once I add the sleeves, it's going to become even more pokey because there's going to be a lot more and more densely packed of the fiber optic stuff. So what I have done in the past, it was with my strawberry dress. What was that, 2 years ago now almost? What I did for that, which was also pretty pokey, scratchy fabric, was I actually took strips of Minky and I like put it over kind of like a binding, just whip stitching it on. So I will definitely be doing that at least in the armpits, if not all the way around the arm's eye for this, because yeah, it's like, it's already driving me crazy and I've been wearing this for about 3 minutes. So, okay, I'm gonna fix these fit things and then hopefully have the bodice to show you for this week's video. Oh my gosh, that fit is so much better. I did all of the tweaks that I mentioned. I took it in basically pinching out 1/2 inch, so in other words 1 inch each side at the waist, tapering it up to the very top, but then letting it like be completely tapered out immediately for the hip, and I feel like that is really good here. I curved in the darts just a little bit further here, doing a really nice gentle curve right at the end, and those darts are looking fantastic now. And I also took up the back darts 2 inches and then like basically tapered it from the new top point to where it was at the waist, so it took in really all of that, and that is also all way better now. So I think that the fit is now spot on, everything that I wanted. So I wish that I could do the light up portion for you guys today, but yeah, I just think that I need to know how many lights I'm going to need for the sleeves before I start attaching or even separating the light strands for the waist, because ideally I would like to get the whole bodice onto one 10 light strand. So yeah, sleeves are going to come next week, and I'm also going to be like finishing off the neckline because right now it's just a serged edge. So this is going to be turned over with bias tape. Honestly, I will probably do that before I even start next week's video. Like I'll probably just do that while I'm editing this video, or, you know, kind of at the same time, and doing the lights on the whole bodice. And I'd like to attempt maybe wings. I don't know that that's gonna happen, but we'll see. If I can do the wings, there may or may not be a reveal with next week's video, depending on how long the wings take me to do. If there are no wings, then you will definitely be seeing a reveal at the end of next week's video. I just have to figure out where I can film this in the dark that's not outside, because I remember that that was one of the things that Crescent Shay, who originally kind of inspired this project, one of the things that she talked about with her reveal is that she did it outside and all of the bugs flew to her, and that is not something I'm okay with. So I think I'm gonna talk to the theater where I'm doing Singing in the Rain, which is Tacoma Musical Playhouse. If any of you are interested in coming to see the show, I will leave the ticket information down below. We run September 16th through October 9th, I believe, and I am in the tapping ensemble. But I think I'm gonna try and talk to them and see if maybe they will let me film there. I have no idea if that's gonna be okay, but I figure large space that can be made dark sounds like a plan. So yeah, we'll see if I can do that maybe this weekend as we go into Tech Week. So that is going to be it from me for today. I do hope that you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube twice a week, with my sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and other costuming content out on Saturdays, but I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks right here on YouTube. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Sharon and Mirage. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!